Welcome back, guys. So, here is the overclock test of Heaven on the GTX 1080 in 1080p. And while this benchmark goes, I'll elaborate more on what I was saying in the last video on how you can get the increased performance without getting the drops or anything of that sort from the card or from just GPU in general. So yeah, I'll start this benchmark and we'll get going. So basically how this works, as I said in the last video, it tends to underperform. Also, what I was thinking of in the last video when it comes to where temperature is concerned, I was thinking of thermal throttling. It tends to thermal throttle when it gets to the 83 degree mark. You can change that, which I have done. I've changed it to 85, although it will not get to that temperature. I use the MSI Afterburner. I highly recommend it. You can change all the settings in it, although you don't want to go a bit nuts with it, but I'll explain now on what I use, what I found to be the best to use, and you don't get any drops whatsoever. If you do, you get minor, tiny little drops every now and then if you're playing a really high-end game, like as I said in the last video, The Witcher 3 on Ultra or whatever on 4K, if you whatever you may be playing. But as you can see on this chart down in the bottom left now, I've put the power supply, or usage should I say, up to 120% instead of 100, so now it's free to go above 100% up to 120, although it most likely won't, and it doesn't very often, and if it does, you'll get a minor drop because it quickly goes back down. As you see, 117, then it went back down. It really rarely will go to 120, and it gives it that headroom to just go up. And I've overclocked it, so it's still not going to 120, given the fact I've overclocked it slightly. As you can see, it sits at 81 degrees with the custom fan settings that I've got on now. Although you don't need the custom fan settings on. I mean, you could easily set the fan to, I don't know, like 70%, maybe max 72 or something, 73. It's at 73 now. But that's because my room's really hot. I've been doing a lot of testing all day. Naturally 70% is more than enough for it to stay low. So yeah, you can see it's at over 2000 megahertz now. Before it was like something like, it was going into the 1700s, the high 1700s, when it was getting the power usage problems, where it was using too much power for what it's actually able to comprehend. So it'll just go, oh wait, we have to back off a little bit, which it does. And that's nothing wrong, it's just the card doesn't recognize that it can do more or less. So yeah, that's basically how it works. I hope all this helped in some way or another, especially for people that want to get the most out of the card, because they can get more. I play Doom pretty often. I'm actually looking on doing a playthrough of that soon, and that game's a pretty demanding game in 4K, and in some areas you tend to go down to the 40s in FPS, the high 40s mind you, but while I've got this overclock on, I really don't tend to go that low now. I tend to stay in the 60s, and only in like cutscene type things I get down to the 40s, which is natural for things to go down at that time. So yeah, I use plus 200 megahertz on my core clock. As I said, 120% power usage instead of 100. You can put the temperature to what you want as long as you have a good enough fan setting on, or you just set your fan to high enough and keep an eye on it. As you can see, it's really not going to go high enough to do any sorts of damage. In fact, that's lower than most of the time what it will on like base as the card comes. But yeah, I'm getting a good increase in performance. I'm getting 250, as you can see on the score, 2890 or 2890. That's substantially higher really than the score I got before, especially when you're considering that didn't cost you an ounce of money. You literally just had to change a few settings and there you go, you get a lot better performance. A good increase to FPS if you're playing in 4K as well, which is pretty much what the card in my case is used for. Not that everyone needs that, but I can't assume that many people would need this card for 1080 in the first place. But yeah, I use a plus 250 megahertz to memory clock as well. And I think that's about it. So as I say, if you enjoyed, I'd really appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up, and if you're new, you could subscribe if you really feel the need to. If not, no worries. And I'll see you in the next video.